Okay, sweet. Let's get started. So welcome everyone to the DEVS UI and UX workshop. A big cheer for you guys who make it today. I know everyone is really busy right now and we appreciate your participation. So this workshop will be presented by Reina, Ishan, and me. And no matter what background you're from, this workshop does not require you to have any prerequisite knowledge about UI and UX. If you like designing and you like creating stuff, here's the right place for you. Lovely. First of all, I need to give a big thank to all the lovely sponsors. Thank you, Potentia, Cisnet, and Atlassian of being our gold sponsors, Serato, Nintex, Optiver, Zero, Canva, and Gather of being our silver sponsors. Thank you for your support for this workshop. And for today's agenda, we'll be dividing up into 4 sessions. First of all, I'll be going through all the fundamental stuff that gives you some ideas about UI and UX. And we have invited a special guest speaker to share about her insights in the UI and UX industry. Then Ishan will be introduce you some common UI UX practices which can lead you to a good design. And after learning those designs, Reina will be doing a UI prototyping with you by using Figma. And lastly, we'll be introduce you to our UI and UX design competition, which is your time to show off your creativities. Sweet. So what is UI and UX design? I'll be answering these questions in 4 phases. First of all, I'll be start answering you to give you some intuition, and then I'll be covering some history during the UI and UX development. Then I'll ask you to, I'll walk you through some cases about UI and UX. And lastly, I'll be introduce you some jobs that has UI and UX with it. Sweet. So to start off today's workshop, I need to point out that UI stands for user interface and UX stands for user experience. A user interface is the point of interaction between the user and the digital device of the product, like the touch screen you use on your smartphone or the touchpad that you use to select what kind of snacks that you want in the vending machine, or say you're using Windows or Mac, then the buttons that you're clicking every day will be the UI design. And user experience is a bit different. It is a group of tasks focused on the optimization of a product for effective and enjoyable use. And when Windows no longer throw you like a sudden update, or Mac start to support your favorite game, and here's when user experience comes in. So in this sense, UI will be more apparent, but UX is less touchable in this sense. And to me, if we want to make the analogy of treating user interface as a person's body, then user experience will be that person's mind, that person's spirit, and that person's soul. And here, I would like you to watch this image for 10 seconds. And now I would like you to feel about this image for 10 seconds. So I hope that gives you some sort of feeling about the main focus of UI and UX. In this case, UI will be the component. So it's the image that I want you to be stare on, and UX builds on top of the foundation of UI. In this case, I use a video rather than an image. The text is more apparent in color of white for better contrast, and a zoom in screen will provide you this kind of immersive experience. All right, it's time for some story. So in the next few minutes, I'll be walking you through the timeline of UI development history. So basically, I categorize them into 3 phases: to exist, be real, and be flat. So the quote here: different UI UX stands for different UI UX styles exist for a reason. Anyone knows this guy here? I can give you 10 seconds to take a guess. Yeah. Right. Any clues? Can be just some random words of like guessing who that guy might be. You can use Google if you want. A famous designer. Yeah, not really. Pop singer. Right. Sweet. It's neither. If I pronounce it out, it's I made it up. So actually, I made it up. So I hope my UI UX design just tricks you to make you really feel that's some design master's quote. But yeah, to carry on this point, that I would like to point out that that's what UI and UX designer do, to want you to provide you like a better experience of believing what they want you to feel about. So I would like to carry on this point to introduce you how UI comes in to allow user to use the system more efficiently. So as you can see on the left, there's a MS-DOS, which is purely terminal. And then when Windows just first launched, it has a really basic graphical user interface. So at this stage of the history, the main focus is its functionality, which really allows user to use the system more efficiently. So at this phase, we want functionality to exist. And moving on to the phase that user interfaces having the kind of skeuomorph design style. In this phase, user interface has a main purpose of allowing user to quickly learn how to use computer systems. And this skeuomorph styles comes in to allow user to quickly associate with icons and things that they are familiar with. So for example, like a folder in real life, that allows you to store files in. And likewise for iOS 3, the realistic icon usage allows user to recognize each application's functionality real quick. Say you see the camera here, which is really kind of like realistic icon to allow you to recognize what's its main functionality. So at this stage, we want things to be real, such that people can associate with things that they're familiar with. And yeah, just like to point out that I just find the University of Auckland file storage system is still using the kind of Windows XP design style. So just say the thing I found out, they're still being in this kind of design phase. And lastly, we're now in the phase of we want the design to be abstract, to be light, and to be flat. And I assume most of you might be more familiar with the recent Google's material design and the Apple's design after iOS 7, which is most of them are the modern mobile applications will rely on these two design styles. And in this phase, we want to remove unwanted complexities to better focus. So in the timeline of UI UX development, it is apparent to see the changes of UI more easily, which you can see the change of styles just among the years. And then for UX in this part, that it is the change of the purpose of the design, such that creating UI allows you to more efficiently to use the system, creating realistic icons that allows you to associate with things that you are familiar with so that you can pick up the functionality real quick. And then lastly, flattening the icons to reduce the burden of recognition. Sweet. So now I have a few more cases of website designs that to look at in aspects of color schemes, navigation, and layout. So, yep, sweet. The first one I would like you to look at is Amazon, which is they have a fairly tidy layout in the context of e-commerce that when users are trying to navigate their website, they can find the things that they want fairly quickly. Whereas, let's check out this website here. And you can see it's a bit messy to me, like when I'm trying to sell stuff, you know, it's placed all, it's like the cars and all the products all over the place, and which is not that tidy in terms of like a layout if you want to sell something. And moving on to, I'll be talking about some of the website navigation that I've just found out, like a website of like selling gates that they have a really long navigation bar to navigate through their products, and the design of the icon is also a bit old-fashioned to me, but just my personal opinion. Whereas our Go sponsor at Atlassian has a fairly easy way to allow you to navigate through stuff. So I want to find out some templates or some pricing. I can just quickly navigate through the navigation bar here. And lastly, which is color scheme, that this one made me really feel like the sense of ocean just coming in, which is like not that many contrasts in this website, and whereas a more modern design of color scheme could be something like this, should be fairly simple and fairly minimal and just more satisfying to me. So yeah, that's some of the examples I would like to give you some intuition about the cases of UI and UX in terms of having those web designs, web application designs. And moving on to that, some of you might be more curious about if there's any job choices that would require UI and UX knowledge. So I'm still a newbie in the UI and UX world. And the 3 jobs I can immediately think of, which is the UI researcher, that's the research, UI designer who designs the graphic, and then the front-end developer who implements the component. But today, we have a special guest who is an expert in the UI and UX history. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our guest speaker for today, Daniel Lodridge.
Thank you, Simon. All right, so thanks for that. I'll just quickly introduce myself, and the topic for today is to talk about what are different job opportunities if you were to pursue this path, and so that will be the main thing that I discuss. But it's kind of an ask me anything moment. So if there are other questions that you have around UI UX, I'd be happy to try to answer those as well. So my background is in computer science. I am Canadian and did an honors bachelor in human-computer interaction, which is a specialized degree at University of Toronto. And then I jumped into engineering, human factors engineering. So it's kind of engineering that we don't really have in New Zealand, but it focuses, it sort of came out a lot of like operations research and also just like military research, like looking at human soldiers and saying like, what is the accuracy, what is their like time completion of tasks, and if they're out in the field for 3 days and they haven't slept, how does that impact their like task completion and accuracy and their like perceptual acuity. And so some very specific questions, like sort of treating almost like a person like a part of a machine. And so that was what I trained in to really understand human behavior. And then being in Canada, where the winters are just, really cold, I moved to California and got a postdoc at Stanford. And that postdoc was funded from Google. And so I was working on multitasking, but got to like go to Google and meet researchers there and interact there, and did find industry research quite compelling. So then ended up going into industry, working at Yahoo, and then Tumblr as an acquisition. And another acquisition that folks who are in my class might have heard of is, Kibana was an app that we released. And so that was with a sort of different acquisition. In any case, like, I guess the important thing to know there is that Yahoo's big-ish, say maybe like 8,000 employees, 10,000 employees. Tumblr was much smaller, like a medium size, maybe 1,000 employees. And then the sort of startup innovation group that I was part of was quite small, of like 30 people. And so it was really cool to sort of get a taste of like, what is it like to work in these different size organizations, and what kind of roles do you have? So I'll discuss that next. And so I've been at University of Auckland for 4 years now. And partly I wanted to shift away from Yahoo. Sort of the time had come to a completion there. And there are certain things about industry or university research that I do like. I also do like industry, and potentially may go on back there in the future. Who knows? Who knows? So if you could switch to the next slide, Simon, please. Thank you. And so in just getting a list together to think about, like, those first 3 job titles that Simon put up there are really the canonical ones, the ones that are really well known and really good to sort of anchor, what are the different skill sets involved in different places. And so like you have the researcher who has done some science and who knows a little bit of experimental design, a little bit of psychology. And so if you're interested, anybody on the call is interested in that, usually you might need to do something like a master's, or maybe even coming out with an honors might be fine, but really you want to really be comfortable in like using interfaces, making interfaces to find new knowledge, which is the sort of researcher hat. And so people like product managers will come to me and they'll be like, do people want this feature? Answer me, Danielle. And I'm like, okay. And so I have to like sit back and think like, what question can I answer? I can answer like, here's this other platform that's similar and who's using that? And like, is the uptake growing or shrinking, or like, how does that make sense? And so you sort of have to always like think about these as wicked problems, which, the poor folks who are in my class will have heard me talking about, but really like, some issues of like, what should we design next? What should be the next feature? What are people going to use every day? Like, there's no true answer to that. It's like you just have to like find the best solution that you can with a sort of critical thinking skills. So the first thing that I put on the list here that you may see is UX engineer. And it's a role that I think is super exciting, and I want it to be on all of your radar, because it's something where especially you're from software engineering, you're from computer science, you have technical skills. And a lot of the people, like a good proportion of UX designers and UX researchers don't have those technical skills. They can't actually build anything. I have a computer science background, which I really enjoy, but I did work with people with a sociology background, a psychology background. They bring other things to the table. They bring some great skill sets, but they can't, if you have an idea for a prototype, you can make it happen. And the people who do that, there are people at Google, people at Meta, Facebook, the person at Tumblr who was there, who were doing that job. Like they were sort of the golden unicorn, where they're like people could talk about abstract concepts like, oh, you know, what about this? Like this could be super exciting. And then they would like stay up all night, not always. I'm not advocating for that, but sometimes they would just be these crazy visionaries and they would build it. And like that skill set is really exciting and really appreciated by big companies. So if that's something that you're interested in, just like the kind of prototyping phase, really looking at new technologies that are coming out, new kinds of sensors, IoT, AR, VR, I would say like keep an eye out for those job roles. And so UI, UX UI developer, that's something that you will have heard of. JavaScript remains one of the most used like languages or platforms out there. Like there's still a lot of work in that. And so that's something that's fine. You know, that's sort of like a kind of skill that you can look for. Front-end developer, very similar. Web developer, like that, those next three are quite similar. Usability analyst or engineer is something that's less similar, but if that's, you know, something that's your interest, you can find some roles like that out there, so you can search for that. R&D engineer is something that I've also come across. I see it a little bit more with people who have, say, PhDs, masters or PhDs in engineering. And so it's also pretty cool. Like when I was working at Yahoo News, there were some R&D engineers based in New York, and they would be sort of creating new classifiers for news. You know, they would be mixing content that was coming from different platforms to create like new kinds of slideshows for news. They were trying to like build a classifier to see if they could detect satire in news. So there's really some cool things that you can be doing as an R&D engineer. UX digital strategist, that's more of a high concept person. I would say that that's more like an ideas person, where you're not really into the building, but you're more into the thinking. You like meetings, you like presentations, you like communication. That's an option for someone with your background. And then UX researcher, that was the role that I had, where I do think that the science skill set is quite important. User researcher, quite similar. Experience researchers, quite similar. So something actually that I left on this list, off of this list, that's super important is product manager. And so a product manager manages the dev team, but they're the visionary for the digital product. They're the one that's sort of like saying, what should we be building next? What is the direction for this product? You know, what is the competitive landscape? They have to know the dev work to be able to schedule all the agile sprints. They have to work with the devs to make sure to make it happen. They have to have an idea of like, what is the necessary infrastructure? So I did really enjoy working with product managers. And I think that the UX UI skill set, especially that you learn through these classes, with that wicked problem solving, like you do have to sort of think big and put on different hats. And so that's part of the reason why I like coming to academia, is because the research projects almost seem like a little bit of product manager. Like, you know, students will build something for their honors or their masters or their PhD, and they'll evaluate how it's working. So you kind of get to see that whole life cycle of an idea, which is super exciting. So I'm just going to take a look over to the chat, and I see some questions there. So what proportion of UI UX is actually designing components inside Figma compared to research? And what types of UI UX projects are good to get into industry? Great questions. So the answer depends a little bit on the size of the organization. And so if you have a huge organization, even medium size, like Tumblr or Yahoo or Google, of course, then there's all these specialized roles. You have a designer role where the designer really has years of experience of creating like graphic interfaces. And so they know, like, how do I make these, like, I don't know, how do I draw this logo? You know, that's not something that really we're doing in UI UX. We're not designing the logo. Like we might be able to evaluate it. We might sketch it out, but really, like, it's a graphic interface person who will be doing that precise design. But if you're in a smaller startup type of enterprise or type of company where there are only very few people and people wear multiple hats, then you could have a significant proportion of your job be Figma and Photoshop, because you would sort of be the designer, like the UX designer developer, and you might create Figma where you do need, like, there's a sort of, well, you'll hear more from Reina on like the back end of that, but you do need some technical skills to use Figma well and to use the whole functionality. And so I think people do appreciate that. That becomes like a living requirements document of like, oh, we want this part to feel really bouncy and uppity, and so we're changing the physics of how the animations work here. And so you get to work in Figma and do things like that. So I would say the answer is it depends. And the other thing that I'll say about that is once you're in, like sometimes, people, especially coming out of their undergrad, they're like, how do I break in? Everybody wants experience. Ideally, you've been looking for internships, but I know that those are pretty competitive. So once you're in a company, it's sometimes easier to make a lateral move to a different kind of role, or a sort of, if you want to spend one day a week with this other group to help out that other group and learn this other skill set, like that kind of learning in enterprise happens. But if you're, say, a dev and you're like, oh, I want to apply for marketing, they'll be like, no, you don't have any correct experience. So the application point is not the time for the lateral move. Like, it's easier to get in with your best experience and then do the lateral move in a company. And then what types of UX UI projects are good to get in industry? So you want to have a portfolio of projects. You want to have group experience. Ideally, you have something that's online that people can look at. I would say, like, you kind of like, there's so many different roles here that you see, and the portfolio for those roles looks different. Like the portfolio for a UX researcher, like there's always something with a whole bunch of Post-it notes. They're like, see, I can make sense of messy data. I can do that for you. And like other kinds of portfolios will be slightly different. So I would say that the first step is take a look at some portfolios that are online and just see, like, really, you kind of also want to follow your heart and say, like, what is the kind of project that you want to be spending your time doing, and be able to show that well. The last point that I'll say about that is it's always important to show your thinking process. And so when people are interviewing candidates, they don't want to just know the right answer. They want to know how you got there. They want to know that you'll like consult experts, that you'll like look online, that you'll do a lit review, that you'll like, bounce ideas off, blah, blah, blah. Like they want to know the process so that they see the right answer and they're like, oh, this person can do it again for this other problem. So next question from Lance. What's an example of a UI UX that you really love, that you think that is designed very well? Great question. It's so hard. I would say that if you'd asked me that 6 years ago, I would have been like, hands down, the Apple website. Apple always has the beautiful, like, best website. And today, I'm having just like, it's hard to put my finger on, because like some things are super exciting, like say like the metaverse, and like what's sort of the online presentation for that. It's exciting on the one hand, but it's also like, oh, that kind of looks like Second Life from 2006. And, there's some parts of it that I'm like, like we're somehow, this seems like it's new, but it's not new. And like, why did it not work last time? But it's like coming around again. And so, and the question, Lance, is a good one, because for everyone, I recommend looking at 100 websites, because it's only with the experience of like, what is your gut feel looking at this one? What is your gut feel looking at this one? What is your gut feel looking at this one? That you can gain the wisdom of like knowing what's good and bad, and you gain the experience. You're like, oh, you just need experience to be able to get that taste, and you need to see a lot of things. So in design education, they're constantly exposed to like hundreds of exemplars. And you need that to be able to grow your taste and to grow your skills. So next question, can we enter UI UX with a commerce degree? So I think that a direct, it depends. Let's see, commerce degree. So I think that you would probably, with a commerce degree, more enter marketing, and then you would have to do a lateral move in industry to get to UI UX, because as you said, like it doesn't quite match up, or you might need to do like a bridging honors or bridging program, because it is competitive out there. And if people see, like if you have a great portfolio and you have a commerce degree and you have, say, like some experience, then maybe, because the experience is like your stopgap. But if you just have commerce, and that you may need to do that lateral move. In marketing, they as a research marketing, they do some of the same things that a UX researcher would do. They're like, oh, what do people want out of this product? What is the brand recognition? What do people feel about this brand? And so they're all about the brand. And then like the UX UI team would be like, okay, well, we're not just focusing on the brand. We're like putting the software, putting the interface in front of the person. We're saying like, how does it need to be designed? How's the person using this thing? Like, it's not just about abstract ideas, which are, important. Like people won't buy things if they have no brand recognition. It's just a sort of different team ends up doing those things. And so just like a follow-up on that question, if they do information systems, like that does seem more relevant. And so I think if you have a strong portfolio that you may have a chance. But again, like my experience really is like the Silicon Valley companies, and like the people that I worked with at Yahoo are mostly at Google and Facebook now. And because there's a lot of people competing for those jobs, we usually see at least a master's degree in going for UX researcher. And I would say that's the job that I know most about in terms of like the candidates coming through. For the other ones, I have less knowledge of the candidates coming through. So Elizabeth asks, would having an internship greatly impact your job opportunities? Could we make it up with just having a number of personal projects? So I do think an internship helps. Could we make it up with having a number of personal projects? I think it sort of depends what you are going for. Like, again, like I think you might need to go like junior dev and then lateral move in industry because really, like when you're just coming out of your degree, that's a pretty hard time to be competitive for a job. And so you kind of have to go with what you're most qualified for. I would say in that moment, you like apply, absolutely. Ask people who have that job role in industry. You're like, I want to work there, in that team. Find them on LinkedIn and say like, please, 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 could you talk to me for 10 minutes? Tell me about your job for 10 minutes. And like, it's really hard for people to say no to that. They're like, it's a cute, fresh person who just wants to know about me. I want to help young people. And so they'll say yes, and they'll talk to you for 10 minutes. And that is super important, because resumes, when they flow into jobs, like there's the website way, and then there's the internal referral way. And if you can get in the internal referral way, that is way, 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 way better. And so I would say definitely reach out to people in industry. Just ask for a few minutes of their time, 15 minutes, and say, it would really make a big difference to me. I just want to learn what your day-to-day is. And then if you can develop a relationship with them, that's a really good way in. And then I think maybe this might be the last question, because I know I was trying to keep to a max of 20 minutes talking, and I think I may have already gone over. So last question. You're welcome for the presentation, Ron. And then how big are the teams generally in UI UX design? And could you please talk about collaboration responsibilities in a bigger team? Yeah, so it's designers are, I would say, like as UX researchers, we were at Yahoo, we were split in a lot of different ways that like devs were dedicated to a product, like, oh, you're iOS Yahoo News. That's all you do day in, day out. Whereas like the designers and the UX researchers were like, oh, 1/3 of our time is to Yahoo News, 1/3 is to Tumblr, and 1/3 is to this other innovation team. So I had so many colleagues that I was like in so many meetings and so many groups that I was sort of moving between all the time. It was quite surprising. Like, I think if somebody had told me before I started working there, like, you would work closely with 80 people, I would be like, what? How does one person work with 80 people? But, you know, I had like maybe 4 big product managers who all had like design teams and a marketing person and a dev team. And so and then you sort of have to talk up to like the C level. So there's a lot of people to collaborate with. And yeah, designers, this other thing that was going on when I was working at Yahoo is like, oh, should the designers be sitting with the devs in that team, or should they be sitting with other designers? Because how do we allow them to collaborate and talk? And so in the pandemic world, this is less of an issue, but there were maybe like 15, 20 designers out of a company of 8,000. There was only like 15 researchers out of a company of 8,000. I think that the proportions are a little bit bigger at Google and Facebook, but designers do sort of, yeah, serve a lot of teams. So thank you so much, Simon and Raina, for having me this evening. It's good to see the group of people that you've come together or that you've brought together. You know, like your peers right now are also super important. They will be the people in 5 years' time that you'll be like shoulder tapping to be like, hey, any openings at that company? You know, I'm like looking to switch. Like, this network is super valuable. So I would say, like, keep in touch with your peers, do some projects together, and this network will serve you well in the future. Come and
Thank you
talk to
so
me
much,
if you're more
Danielle.
interested in any future projects. I am taking students regularly for like master's projects, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think we'll have to transition away from me next, but I'm Simon and Raina will share my contact information, and anyone's welcome to contact me again.
Cool.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much, Danielle, for sharing your experiences and educating us on all the various career paths for those interested in UI and UX design. So yeah, now we'll go through 4 of the most common practices that I use in the industry to create effective user interfaces with the user experience in mind. So Simon, can you go next slide? Cool. So the first vital practice is to keep the interface simple. So the best interfaces are seamless and almost invisible to the user. They avoid unnecessary elements and are clear in the language they use on different components. So take a look at the examples below. So on the left, we've got the Apple website from like the 18th century. And on the right, we've got the new Apple website. And see, as you can see, the left image is overly cluttered. It's got way too much information that's not necessary. And on the right hand, we've got a website which is so much more easier on the eyes, so it provides a better user experience. So it's important to remember that it's okay to sacrifice the amount of information visible on a page if it makes it appear more cleaner. Next slide, please. Thanks. So next we have consistency. It's important to create consistency and use common UI elements. By using common elements in your UI, users feel more comfortable and are able to get things done more quickly. It is also important to create patterns in language, layout, and design throughout the application to increase efficiency. So once a user learns how to do something, they should be able to transfer that skill to other parts of the same app. So as you can see, as you can see in like the image, you've got the same color palette used throughout the app and the same buttons, the same styling and padding used everywhere. And this just makes the user feel more comfortable, and they can they know what to do on every page because the styling and everything is consistent. So the third common practice we have is creating purpose on every page by using the layout. So consider the spatial relationships between items on the page and structure the page based on importance. Careful placement of items can help draw attention to the most important pieces of information and can aid scanning and readability. So in the example below, you can see how this appears to be a banking app, and on the first page, we have a big graph in the middle that shows the balance. And this creates the emphasis and creates, so users will instantly know what that page is about. So by using the layout and structuring it accordingly, you can create that emphasis on what's important. So last but not least, we need to make sure that users are aware of the system status. So next slide. Cool. So always inform your users of location, actions, changes in state, or errors. This could be anything from letting the user know if they're logged in, displaying error messages if they perform an invalid action, or even just displaying how many items are in their shopping cart. So all of these contribute to informing the user of what's happening and plays a huge role in the overall experience. So what I went through today were only 4 of the many different heuristics. So if you are in your second year of software engineering or computer science, you might have the choice of choosing an elective next year called Human-Computer Interaction, and Danielle actually lectures that course. So that's a really amazing course that can teach you more about all these different heuristics that make up good design. So that's the end of my part, and now I'm going to hand over to Reina, and you guys can get your hands dirty in actual UI designing and prototyping in Figma. So Reina, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Simon, Ishan, and Daniel for the presentation. I'll just quickly share my screen now. Cool. Can you all see my screen? Yep. Okay, cool. So before we go into Figma, I just want to quickly introduce some fundamental concepts. So to make sure we are on the same page. You may have heard of wireframing and prototyping a lot when it comes to UI/UX design, and it's often really easy to mix them up, but they are actually quite different. So wireframing is actually the basic and low fidelity layouts that kind of draws out the structure guideline of your product. And prototypes, on the other hand, refers to those with more visual details and interaction, for example, with colors and fonts, and we call them mid to high fidelity designs. For those who are not quite familiar with fidelity, it's actually, you can just think of it as the level of details for a prototype or a design. So here is an example of low, mid, and high fidelity design. And in this workshop today, we will be focusing on this high fidelity design. But actually, the first 2 phases of low fidelity and maybe the mid fidelity designs are actually really important as well, because they are leading you towards this high fidelity design at the end. So because we are not going through all these steps in this workshop, I'll just quickly going through some steps that I think will be really helpful before you start creating a high fidelity design. So firstly, before we go to these steps, let's just let me announce the product that we will be designing tonight. So, okay, this should be a sound effect of drum roll, but it's not sharing. Okay, it's okay. We are doing a fancy to-do app. So notice it's fancy. Why is it fancy? Because it's not something like this. It's not something like this, and certainly not something like this. It should be something really user-friendly and something that you really want to use every day. So how should we know what it should look like? This is where those steps comes in before we start doing some high fidelity design. So firstly, why are we designing this product? Let's just analyze the product that we will be building. So why do we want to design this product? Well, obviously, for obvious reason, we are so busy and we have so many tasks and we all forget things. So something that can help you to manage your tasks or possibly manage your time would be something that you really want to use. And therefore, the purpose of this app is to allow users to easily keep track of their tasks and better organize their day. And another reason why we're doing this is because as we all know, developers maybe will create a to-do list app as their first app. And in fact, for those who doesn't have a personal project yet, we will be having a React workshop for you to learn how to build this fancy to-do list app in a few weeks' time. So stay tuned for that as well. Okay, so now we know why we are building this product. Then what kind of functionalities do we want to include for these products? So here are some basic functionalities that I came up with when I was brainstorming. So I strongly suggest when you are designing your product or your design, you should go through this brainstorming phase and list down all the functionalities that you like to have like this as well. So for this app, the basic functionalities I think will be just create a to-do item with title, description, date, and category. And you should be able to mark a to-do item complete. You should you can edit or delete a to-do item if you don't want to have it. And you should be able to bulk delete or bulk complete, just so when you have multiple to-do items that you want to complete or delete at the same time, you can do that. And you can also show to-do items by category or dates. So for example, you only want to see to-do items for today, you should be able to do that. So I believe there must be other really fancy functionalities to add to this list. Does anyone here wants to provide any other ideas? Yeah, just give you 10 seconds before I move on. If you have any ideas, please just send them to the chat so we can see it. Okay, but I'm sure you will be, oh, there are some. Countdown for time remaining, a reminder, progress indicator. Yes, all these are so important and so fancy that we should include in our app. And I'm sure when you are designing your design, you can include all of them in it. Okay, let's move on. So the next step is pretty important because we need to understand our target audience before we start doing the design. We don't want to design something that, we don't want to design the same thing for someone who's in their 20s and someone who's in their 50s, for example. So depending on your target audiences, you may want to change your design styles. As you can see here down below, you have different colors or design styles that you may want to build for different people. So for this app that we will be creating today, we will be focusing on university students, but that could actually be anyone who wants to better manage their tasks. But yeah, just for tonight, we'll be focusing on university students, which is you guys. Cool. After all those analysis, we can finally do some hand sketches. Please ignore my really ugly hand sketch, but this is something that you will be coming up with when you do some hand sketching at start. So some quick hand sketches on paper is actually a really quick and cheap way to get some early feedback from your audience or client. It's easy to change around if you don't like something, or you can think about the user flow as well. For example, here I have this card, and when you click on it, the arrow shows it will go to a modal. And yeah, just some user flows, simple enough to show your clients and get some feedback would be good for this, this stage of prototyping or wireframing. And after that, you should be able to create a low or mid fidelity mockup. So the reason for creating this mockup is because you want to see how your elements that we had on this really drafting sketch will be look like on the real screen. And you have this really regular shapes that can help you to visualize what the final design will look like on your screen. But you don't have to include all the colors or any text or any images just yet, because it's not really like a requirement for this stage of the design. You can just visualize the layout on the screen. And after all of those, we are finally ready for the high fidelity design, which we will be designing for tonight. Well, for by now, you should be able to recognize this name Figma from us. We have been talking about this all night. And for anyone who's not really familiar with this app, you may wonder, what is Figma and why should we use it? Not use some traditional like design tools such as Photoshop or Illustrator. So the reason is down below. The main reason is because it's a web app. So having it being a web app means you don't have to download like a local copy of it. It will save your time, save your memory space, and it's really easy to collaborate with others through internet. And the other reason is because it's really simple and quick. You can create a really high quality prototype in really short time, and learning curve is relatively low. After understanding all the basics, which I will be teaching you tonight, you should be able to do almost everything on Figma. And the real-time collaboration is really another level on Figma. I know Adobe products also have some real-time collaboration features nowadays, but collaborating on Figma is just really different, because you can see the cursor of other people who are also on the same file. That you will be seeing this in a second when we go to the Figma app. And it's just really good for explaining things. And because of all these reasons, it's increasingly becoming the industry standard. As you can see, Figma is beating all those traditional apps and becoming like the industry standard. So yeah, this is the interface of Figma for those of you who haven't used it before. As you can see, it's pretty clean and pretty minimalist, and we will see it in a second. So yeah, now you are ready to create your first prototype. So just before that, before we go into Figma, I also want to introduce some really handy tips for you guys to start creating your first prototype. So you may wonder, how should I get started? Like, I know I have a low fidelity, like a sketch, or like a really no color, low fidelity prototype. So how can I get started and design like a pro? So here are some suggestions from me. Go find some inspirations. And for me, I think there are two things that really matters for a design. Firstly, the design style, and secondly, the colors. And now I'm gonna share some secrets in creating some good designs that I keep from others all years. So I'll show you each of them in a second. So for design styles, I often go to these websites to find some inspiration. I'll show you guys in a second. So yeah, the first one is Pinterest. Actually, I'll paste all these these links in the chat, so you can go on and have a look yourself. So the first one is Pinterest. It's really easy to use because you can just save whatever you want and just view it later. And it has lots of good designs that you can scan through and get some good inspiration. And the second one, Behance, is also a really good place for getting good design inspirations, because it's actually a really, I think it's really professional for like professional designers to put their designs up here. And some of the designers I know, they use this website as their portfolio when they apply for jobs. And last one, Dribble is also a really good one to get some inspiration. Lots of good designs that you can find on this platform. Yeah, and for colors that I also really like to use for my designs, this one. Color Hunt. This one is pretty nice because it has pre-generated color schemes for you, and you can also search by different colors or different styles. Retro, for example, it will come up with all the retro color schemes that you can use. You can also save to your own color scheme collection that you can use later. And the next one, Coolers. This app is pretty good for generating colors from any photos. I found it quite useful just to generate anything. Like you can add a photo and it will extract any colors from your photo. I just saw a question in the chat. Any good color scheme recommendation for inclusive design? Oh, wow, that's a really good question. Yeah, I'm sure we can search it up. but I'm sure this Color Hunt is a really good place for you to explore different color schemes. But if you want to search for inclusive design specifically, maybe Google is a place for you to do that, because I personally didn't really come across this inclusive design before, but thanks for asking that. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So the next step is actually creating your component. Let's finally go to Figma. I'll just give you a brief introduction for Figma first, but firstly, as you can see on the screen, this is a file that I will be sharing with you guys like for tonight, but it's not the file that you will be working on. It's just like an asset file, but I put all the assets that I want to share with you here, including all the colors. And I put all the the high, like a sketch and the low fidelity prototype here. I added some text here so that we can have a good reference of what each thing is, but I will just briefly go through what each of these components is now. So today we will be building upon this low fidelity prototype and creating a high fidelity prototype using these colors and this logo, and maybe change some fonts. So just to explain this real quick, this is, can you see my cursor on the screen? Simon, can you see my cursor on the screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, cool. That's good, because I need the cursor for you to know where I'm talking about. So yeah, this part is actually the Nav Bar, or you can see like a toolbar of this app. So as we talked about before, we wanted to have view to-do list by categories or by dates. So here you have today, next 7 days of to-dos, and you can select different categories to view different to-do list. And here will be the category title. And then here will be the form that you will be putting your title, date, and description in. And when you click add, it will add to this to-do list below. And then this one will be the to-do list card. So one card will include a title, date, description, and the category label. And this circle actually will help you to mark this to-do list complete. And here we will have the bug delete and complete buttons. And this will be the modal that will be showing up when we click on this card. And it will have the title, date, description, and the category label as usual. And you have the edit and delete button as well. So cool. I'll just quickly share this with you guys. Yeah, and actually before that, I'm aware that maybe some of you don't have a Figma account. So for those who doesn't have an account, please create one now. And I will give you 2 minutes to do that. If you have created an account, please go to this dashboard, the Figma dashboard, and create a new design file. And then what I want you to do is to copy this asset. Copy is by, Control C or Command C, just as usual on your laptop, and then paste in your own copy of the Figma file in your own account. Yeah, you can just select it and click on it and copy it. I'll give you guys like 2-3 minutes to do that. Leftmost asset, the logo. Yeah, that's a logo I created for tonight. But if you want to use a different logo, just go for it. The ones down below, you don't have to copy them. You can go back to this file to have a look what's going on. But yeah, you don't have to copy it. And you can't copy it actually because I locked them. Okay, please give me a thumb up in the reaction if you have done it. Okay, I saw a few thumbs up. Just wait for 1 more minute before I continue. Right. Yeah, for those of you who doesn't know how to move around in the Canva, on MacBook or any laptop that has like a pad, you can just move around easily using your pad. But for those of you using mouse, you can move up and down using the mouse scroll wheel. And then for left and right, you can hold Shift and using the mouse scroll wheel to move around. But you can also use this hand tool here. You can move around. Okay, I assume most of you have done it. So let's go to the next step. I actually want to introduce some of the like the tools that we will be using tonight before we go into our designs. So for those of you who are not familiar with this Figma app, this is actually the toolbar, and this is the title. You can change it by double click on it. And here you have the share button, your profile picture, the present button that we will be using, and zoom. You can change the zoom to like 50%. Yeah. And on the left hand side, you have the panel that is the layers and the assets panel. We will also be using this. As you can see, you can already see the different assets that we have here. And the layers is just a place for you to change the order, the vertical order of the thing that you, the elements on the screen. And this middle part, which I called screen, is actually called Canva. And I will be calling it Canva like from now. And this right-hand side is pretty important, especially the design panel, because we will be using this a lot. When you select an item or like an element, you will see the design panel changes. You can change the alignment, change the size, position, rotation, or the corner radius. And you can also change the colors, the stroke, and effects. Effects is you can select drop shadow or like blur if you want. And you can also export this, whatever you want to export on this Canva. Yeah, okay. So let's dive into the design before we take a break. So we will be doing a really simple design, like an element for now. And then after the break, we will be completing the whole design. Okay. Is everyone ready for it? Yeah, thumbs up. Okay, I saw a few of them, the thumbs up. So yeah, I'll start doing it. So firstly, as you can see from this low fidelity prototype, can someone please tell me how many components that you think we will be doing tonight? Like how many different components are there on this design? Just a quick number 3. Any other answers? Okay, 2, yeah. 4, right. Yeah, there can be different answers actually, because it depends on how we separate the components. For those of you who said 3, oh, there's an example, buttons, text box, checkbox. Yeah, that's a way of separating the components. But for me, I personally like to separate components by the groups. So the Nav Bar, I see it as a component. The form, I see it as a component. The card, to do card, is a component. These buttons is a component, and this modal is a component. So yeah, roughly 3 to 4 components that we will be building tonight. But actually, the way of building these ones are quite similar. So we will only be learning one, and then you can do the rest yourself. So yeah, the first one that we will be learning is to build this really basic card component for to-do list. But before that, just to introduce some really fancy tools that we will be using, we will be like starting with this really simple delete button. Okay, so as you can see, the delete button is literally just a rectangle and like a text on top of it, right? So let's just, oh yeah, I forgot to introduce these panels, but you can select a shape here. And as you can see, there's a rectangle, like a line, arrow. And for now, we can choose rectangle. And when you drag the mouse on the Canva, you can simply create a rectangle, and we will just make it like this for now. And assuming you have done that. So the first thing I want to introduce is to add some corner radius to this rectangle element. There are two different ways to do this. You can see when you hover over it, like when you zoom in and you hover over it, there will be 4 dots on the corner. So if you drag one of it, it will change the corner radius. This is the same as Illustrator that I used before. So it's a really simple way for you to create like a corner radius. But another way to do this is on the panel there I showed you before. And for this one, we will make it 10 so that it has a really nice corner radius that we want. Okay, so the next step is to create a text on top of it. Just click the text button and click on the top of this rectangle, and you can type in delete. Oh wow, this is fancy. You can change the font or the size of the font here. Now we can make it not, we can make it too regular. And that should be okay. Has anyone done this? Please give me some reaction. Yeah, okay, I saw some reaction. Cool. The next step is really fancy. It's something that we will be using the whole night. So please look carefully. So select all of them by dragging your mouse like this. You can see a blue rectangle come up, and then the selected elements will show up like this, like have a blue outline. And then click on, right click, you can see a panel shows up, and then you click Add Auto Layout. And after that, when you select this element, you can see a frame comes up. So that's because we added auto layout to it. And this auto layout is like a magic that can help you to position any elements that we want in this button, or like any elements. So for now, we want to make the button actually responsive. And that's the whole point of doing the auto layout. It's making your design responsive. So by making it responsive, I mean, see if we make it like this, the delete text is in the center of this rectangle. But then if we expand the rectangle, it is not centered anymore. So what we want to do is to make it center, like always centered in this rectangle. How to do that? Well, firstly, you click on this frame, and then you can see this blue outline as it's selected. Then you want to go to the panel right here, says auto layout, and click on this, this square, has some line in it, and it's called alignment and padding. Click on it, and if you hover over in this square here, you can see some blue lines comes up. And this is actually the position of the element inside this frame. So if we select the middle one, you can see this element is centered in the middle of this frame. And now whenever we drag this around, it will always be centered. Yeah, it's like magic, hey? Yeah, and is that all done for you guys? Give me some reactions. Yeah, I saw some up. Okay, cool. The next one, the next thing I want to introduce is like whenever you hover over, like click on this rectangle, you can see some numbers here, and these ones are called paddings. So paddings is just like the the width between this edge and this this element inside of this frame. So if we change this to like a really big number, 1,000, or maybe it's too big. So you can see this top padding is changed to be really big. We don't want that. We can change it back to 20. But we want the left and right paddings to be a bit smaller and a bit like the one we have here. So we can just change it to, for example, 30, 30, and maybe it's still too big. Change it to 20, 20. Okay, this should be all right. And maybe we want to change it to be a little bit shorter. Yeah. So we have finished our first component. Yeah. The next step is actually creating this bigger component for the to-do card. But we will be having a break now. And during the break, we will be having some spot questions and for some spot prizes. If you guys stay tuned, you will be able to get some prizes as we, yeah. So Simon and Ishan, you can take over from now.
Okay, sweet. So let's all have a break, and yeah, just having some question for you guys. Would be nice if any of you could turn up with just introducing like some of your favorite UI and UX, maybe experiments or some product that you really like, and just briefly sharing with us. That would be very nice. And just feel free to open your mic and speak out if you want. Anyone?
Okay, guys, let's do a challenge. While Reina is away, I want you to try and find the worst designed website that you can find on Google and send the link in the chat. And the worst one will get a Centrality t-shirt. So that's your competition for the next few minutes.
That sounds more engaging. Nice. Let's go. Oh, okay. University website, Microsoft. I got a link there. Let's have a look. Oh wow.
Oh,
Oh wow.
linkscast.com.
Oh, Canvas. Nice one.
Oh, wow. Picking out some links here.
This one is definitely winning so far. Linkscast. Oh, Tremor audio.
This is from the test, right?
Yes, it's from the HCI test.
Lead code.
Lead code.
Oh.
Bad memories.
Yeah, the UX definitely always get myself traumatized after using their service.
Wow.
Yes.
I was expecting the car website, but no.
Rachel Sal. Yeah, you can say it like that. Oops.
The world's worst website.
All right, one more is coming in.
Oh my.
Oh.
No styling at all. Maybe too much styling, to be honest.
Okay, it seems the worst ones is lingscars.com, the world's worst website ever.com, and nissan.com. So all three of you can have a centrality t-shirt. I'm just noting down your name. And if you could DM me your UPI so I can get in touch.
Okay, shall we carry on?
Yeah, sure. Everyone ready to carry on? I'm sure you are. Okay, so
Yes,
the
let's do it.
next step- yeah.
Yes.
The next step, let's finally create our first element. So to do that, we will do something really similar to this delete button. But let me just, how can I show this at the same time? Okay, cool. So firstly, for those of you who still follow me, please create a rectangle like you did for the button, like this. Just make this. Okay, so I can see everything. So yeah, after creating this rectangle as usual, you go change the corner radius to 10 again. So it has a nice corner radius as we want. And the next thing we want to do is to put some labels onto this this element. We can, because we need like, as you can see, we need a title, a date, description, category. So let's put those 4 labels here. Okay, you don't need to worry about the position on this. I just saw like a question in the chat. It says, does Figma take scripts, add animation, logic, backend stuffs? Backend stuffs. Oh, what is backend stuffs? But I know Figma will do some basic prototyping, which we will be covering in a second, like after this basic prototyping of CSS and API. I'm not sure if it covers API, but it will have some basic animation that you can like simulate the real app that you will be seeing in a second. Yeah, okay. So the next step, we want to create a different shape, which is this circle here. We don't have a circle shape, so let's just create like a solid circle for now. And if you drag it like you did for the rectangle, it wouldn't be a circle because it's like an ellipse shape by default. So what you want to do is to hold Shift and then drag. Then you can have a regular circle. We will just change the color to black so you can see it. And after that, we want to create this circle shape. So this is not really a circle. What we want to do is to create a stroke. You can add one by clicking on it, or like this button here, and add a stroke. Yeah, Alan just told me, yeah, Alan should tell everyone about that, the CSS stuffs. And so to create this circle, you can just delete this fill inside the circle and make it just leave this stroke. It should be something like this. And you can see we want something a bit thicker, so we can change the size to 2 and maybe change the size of the circle a bit smaller like this. Yeah. Okay, and now what we want to do is to kind of change the weight and the size of the title, the date, description, and category, because they have different roles. And the title should be the biggest because it's the most important thing on the card. And this is kind of like a design, design element that we want to include in this, because we don't want the users to just stare at the date or the description without seeing the title. So what we want to do is to change the weight, which you can see here underneath the text panel. You have this font drop down. You can select whatever font you like, but I will stick to this Paddings. And then you can change the weight to whatever you like, but to me, like a title should be something like medium or maybe bold, but I'll stick to medium for now. So it's a bit different from other elements. And maybe we can change the font size to a bit smaller. Like the whole thing should be a bit smaller because 30 is actually really big on the screen. So we can change it to 25 for the title. And then for other ones, we can change it to 18. So now you can see the title is the most important element in this on this card, and the category, the description, and the date are less important than the title. Okay, now it looks similar to what we want to have, but we will be using some magic like we did for this delete button. And the magic is called auto layout. So what you want to do is to select all of them again and add auto layout. And after that, you will see the style changes a bit, and it's not what we want it to be. So just to repeat, why we want to add this auto layout is because we want it to be responsive. So whatever we change the size of the thing, the elements inside should be like responsive to the change of the big size of the frame. So that's what we want to do. If we don't do auto layout, we just do something that we did before like this, we can't really do anything with the size, or it's not staying on the top of this element either. So we want to make it auto layout like this. So how to solve this issue, like how to sorry, how to make it align. Sorry, too much talking tonight. How to make it align as we want it to be. So firstly, you notice this alignment of this category and the circle is not right. So let's do this first. By selecting the circle and the category, you can select both of them by holding Shift and select both of them. And then you right-click, you add an auto layout inside of the auto layout. So this is auto layout by itself now. So the next step you want to do is to make the alignment correct. And how you can do this is actually underneath the auto layout panel. You can see this arrow here actually represents the horizontal direction and the vertical direction of the alignment. So you can change it to horizontal, but you see the order of the alignment is not correct. This can be simply changed by selecting this circle here. You can double click on it to select it, and then you drag this, you drag this circle to this side, and this should give you the correct alignment. But another thing I noticed is because this category is pretty large, and if we make it smaller, this alignment changed again. So how can we make it make the circle stay on the side, or like whatever we change this left-hand side element? So to do this, we select this frame again, and notice under the alignment and padding, there is a drop-down called packed and space between. So sorry, just before that, we want to change the size of this from hog content to fill container. So you can see this outside frame changed to fill the container. And then the next step, you go to this alignment panel and change to space between. So now, although this category size is not as big as this, you can see the circle still stays on this side, which is what we want. Okay. Everyone still follows? Give me some reaction. Okay, I saw someone having the reaction. Cool. The next step we want to do is actually, you can see the vertical alignment is not correct because we want this category to align in the center vertically as well. So how to align it like that? We go to this alignment panel again, and this time we select the center of this alignment. Oh, actually, before that, this text element actually has alignment itself. So under the text panel, we can select align center. So it will align the text element to the center as well. So after that, you can see this is aligned perfectly as we wanted. Cool. Let's make it a bit bigger. Okay. So the next thing we want to do is actually have some spacing between the title, date, description, and the bottom part, the category and the circle. But currently we can't do that because these ones are all inside this frame. And when you try to move them around, you can't actually do that. So how to create this the spacing between these elements. So one way to do it is to create another auto layout for these three elements only. And it should look like this. You can see here we have two big frames inside of one big frame. And similar to the one we did below, we want to change the hard contents to fill container so that you can see the frame grows to align on this side. And then we want it to be, we want a spacing between them. So we select the outer frame, which will select all of them. And then we change this padding to maybe 20, which will give us a good padding between them. But actually there is another way to do this. So currently, if I do it this way, when I drag it like this padding, we want it to stay at the bottom. So how big this card grows, this category should stay at the bottom. But currently, if we do like 20 padding between them, we can't actually achieve that. So how do we do that? We select the frame again, and we go to alignment panel. And now we select the space between. So you can see now we have this nice space between, but then it will stay at the bottom. And whenever we move around, it will still stay at the bottom. So yeah, we can make it like this big. And see how I resizing this outer frame does not affect the position that we have on this frame. Okay, now we just quickly make these texts align in the center. Okay, so this should be something that really similar to our prototype on the left. But here is one thing that I want to add. So currently you see the category label, it should have some like background rectangle like underneath it. So not just like a label here, just to make it clear that it is a category label, not some description. So what we want to do is to add something underneath it. This is a rectangle. So we can add it like this inside, like you select this frame and then add the rectangle. You can see the rectangle is added inside of this frame. You can't see it because it's in the same color. We can change it to a different color like white. And then we want it to be underneath this category text, but we can't do it right now because it's in auto layout. So how do we do that? We can select both of them like this. And now instead of adding auto layout, we can add a group selection like this. We group them. This allows you to put this on top of this rectangle. If we add another auto layout, like before we add group, if we add another auto layout, we can't actually put this on top of this rectangle because auto layout actually supports horizontal and vertical alignment, but on top of it, it's another story. So let's go back and then group them and put this on top. But Figma is really smart. Like if you put this like this, the auto layout can detect it's you want it to be on top of this this rectangle. So now when you select both of them and you go add auto layout, oops, that is not what I wanted to do. Okay, today it's not going to do that. So let's just make it like this, like a group, and then we can change the bottom part to be bottom rectangle to have a radius as well. We can make 8 for this. Actually, it should be, yeah, it works when I tested it, but I'm not really sure why it's not working now. But actually we need the auto layout for like a later usage. So let's just move it out for now. And then we can do auto layout like we did for the button. Oh, I think I know why, because this is a bit too big. This text is a bit too big for this auto layout. So it should be inside, like the whole thing should be inside of this rectangle underneath. So we can change it to be smaller and change the frame to be smaller, change it to center, and then we can add auto layout. Yeah, it's working now. Oops. Okay, we can put this back and now it should be great. And the reason why we want it to be auto layout is because we want to add some paddings and we want it to be in the center always. So whenever we change this text inside, we want the outer rectangle to change as well. So let's add some paddings. Oops, should do it. Okay, yeah. This is the trick. So you have to change it to hard content. So hard content is actually similar to like fit content. So you can change it to like whatever you change inside, it will still have the same padding. And then I don't know why this comes here, but we can change it back to space between. So yeah, this should be good for now. And have you guys all created this component? Please give me some reaction. Oh, okay. I see two people have done it. Cool. The next thing we want to do is also kind of like a magic. So we want to select this frame and we want to go right click and we want to create a component. So I was speaking like component, this word for a lot of time, but we are actually creating one component. So why are we creating this component? It's because we want it to be, this component is actually really powerful because let me show you guys. So if we copy another component from this original component by selecting on it and Control C, Control V, we can copy and paste a component. So this component here is called the parent component. You can see the icon on the top is like 4 dots, like a square, but it's a full square with 4 dots. But the component, the copy of the component doesn't have those 4 dots in it. And this is like shows you it's a copy of the component, not the component itself. So whenever we change the parent component, like if we want to change the color to white, you can see the copied version of this parent component also changes. So whatever changes we have on this parent component will reflect on this copied version of this component. And this is what we want to have, because we have, you can see we have so many different components, and we don't want to create them one by one. So that's why we want it to be like in this way. So if we made a mistake, we can change it quickly using this parent component. Cool. Now we can create more component, like more child component, I'll say. And maybe just place it like whatever you want. And we can change this to have like the colors that we want. So currently we don't have any colors. And now I want to introduce some really cool color features that we can use in Figma. If you have this color asset that I give you, you can go here and like double click, select this, select one color rectangle. And you can see this fill under the fill panel. You can see the color, the hex code, and the the opacity of this color. And what I want to introduce is to create some styles that you can use repetitively in your design. So you don't have to, enter this hex code every single time. You can just use some styles that you defined using these colors. So there is actually a way to define color styles, and that is using the material design color themes. So in material design, they actually design it to be primary, secondary, primary variant, secondary variant, and all these names that they use. I think lots of tech companies in the industry, they also use something similar. And yeah, we can do it like this way properly, but for this workshop, we can also do it whatever we want. Like you can call it whatever you want. So you can create like, I'll just call it primary, because this is the primary yellow color that we will be using. And this, I will call it primary light, because it's a bit like a bit lighter. This is primary dark. Yeah, I just want you guys to do this with me. So whenever you use the colors, you can just use the styles in the component library, in the styles library. And this color is actually the white color. So if you want, you can call it white, but you don't have to. And this is the background color that we will be having for our design. This is like, we can call it secondary because, or maybe we can call it paragraph. It's like the color that we use for like lighter gray, like lighter text. We can also call it gray light because we have a gray dark. And this one, this button is, not this button, this color is for the delete buttons. So I will call it delete red. And this is, these four are actually for labels, or the category labels. So I'll just call it, oops, what's happening? Category red. Cool. Now you have all the colors in your styles. We can start using them. So for this, this one, this card, we want the background color to be white. And that's the same for all the cards. And we want this circle to use our primary color, maybe the primary dark color, so you can see it. And the category card, You can use whatever you want, but I'll just use the category red for now. And yeah, that should be fine for our cards. Cool. Now you have this card element created. You want to go create other elements, but I know this time is really, really, really tight. So I will give you the elements that I created before, so you can just use them in your design. Okay. Yeah, I copied and pasted in the link I shared you guys before. I'll show you guys again. And I know it's only 3 minutes, so I'll quickly do some like put them into the layout. So for those of you who are watching the recording, you can see them. So what you want to do is actually create like a frame. And now I'm using the desktop size of the frame so that you can view it as you on the desktop. And the size of it is actually, yeah, thank you guys. Sorry for staying so long. But yeah, the size of it, it's actually 1440 by 1424. And I'll just start pasting everything to it. And it's actually what you want to do as well. So firstly, we have the nav bar. We can place it in it like this. The nav bar should be like on here. And we have these ones. We can firstly paste this form here. Before that, we can change the background color to our background gray, so we can see these ones. And then we have the to-do cards. Paste it in, and the buttons we paste it in, and the modal doesn't have to be inside. And for the cards, we want to create 4 of them, or maybe 6 of them. Copy and paste like this. Okay, cool. I won't change the title of the cards because we don't have time for it. And we actually want to add a label here today because we selected today here, and we can change it to bold and probably 40. Yeah, this should be a good title. No? So after everything, maybe change it back to semi-bold. Yeah, after everything, your prototype should look something like this. You can try this at home if you have time. But now I'm gonna demonstrate some pretty cool things. That is actually the prototyping part of this workshop. I'm really sorry for this time, but I will do this quickly. So for those of you watching the tutorial video, you can see what I'm doing. So what we want to do is, as you can see, here we have this desktop frame, and some of the cards actually went outside. We want to create a scrolling effect of this so that whenever we scroll, it will have like a nice animation. How to do that? We can firstly, you can see this under the design panel. This clip content is selected. If we deselect it, you can see the cards going outside. So we select all of the cards, and then we frame selection. And then we go back and clip content. And then we select this frame. We make the frame the same to the edge of this larger frame. And then we go click content again when you select the frame. So now we want to show you something really cool. We select this frame with the desktop one. And before that, we select this inner frame for the cards. We go overflow scrolling. We change it to vertical scrolling. And then we select this outer frame. We go show prototype settings. Notice the device is down here, so we can change it to custom size. And remember, our size is this 1440 by 1024. We can change the size to that. Yeah, and then we select the frame again. We hit this present button that we saw earlier. Yeah, we can see our prototype is here. And if I scroll here, you can see this nice scrolling animation is presenting like this. Cool. The next cool feature I want to show is like, you want to actually simulate this prototype to have some actions. So like when you click on it, it should show up this model that we designed. So how to do that? You double click on this card, and until you can see this card is selected and this plus button is showing up. And whenever you click on it and drag it, you can see an arrow going out. And what you want to do is to put this arrow to this modal component like this, and then change this interaction details to open overlay. And then you want it to be, you want to select close when clicking outside. And you want to add a background behind overlay. This is like automatically added to be the black with some opacity. So that's what we want. And animation, we can change to dissolve and just leave it out like default. And then we go present again. So now if you hover over, you can see your cursor changes, and you click on it, it will show up this nice model. And if you click outside, it will disappear. We notice this animation is a bit slow. We can change the, oh wow. We can change the time to be like 100. And now we also wanted to do something cool, like we want to close this modal when we click this close button. So what we want to do is to select this close button group here, and then we drag it like this, and we select close overlay, and we present again. So now when you select this card, it will show the overlay, and then when you close it, it will close like nicely like this. This is something that we will be having after the React workshop as well, so please stay tuned for that. Cool. This is a really basic prototyping for this workshop. Sorry for staying so long, and now I'll go back to the presentation for Simon and Ishan to announce some competition details.
Thank you so much, Raina, for that comprehensive tutorial. It was very in-depth, and I'm sure we all learned so much about Figma and what we can do with it. So now I'll introduce the competition. If you could go to the next slide. So now it's time for you to get your hands dirty, and what you have to do is design a personal portfolio website. So it could be anything, it could be any style, anything you want. Basically, it's your turn to be creative, add in your own flair. And But there are some conditions that the portfolio website must have a minimum of 3 sections. So that is an About Me section, a Skills section, and an Experience section. So it's completely up to you if you want to have these sections on separate pages, or you want to create a one-page design for your website. So it's all on you. It's your turn to be creative. Remember the common UI UX practices, which are simplicity, consistency, and remembering to place emphasis on each page. So yes, you've got until Sunday, 10th of April, 11:59 p.m. to make your designs, and there's a Google form link which you can use to submit your designs. So all this information will be available on the Facebook page, so you don't have to remember this or take a screenshot. But basically, yeah, you've got until the end of the weekend to make your design for your personal portfolio website. And the great thing about this competition is that sometime in the future, you can actually make this design into a real website. So after maybe the React workshop and subsequent workshops, you will have the skill set to code it up and actually use it as a real website. So that's one of the advantages of designing a portfolio website. So there are 3 categories for the winners. So we've got the most popular design, most creative design, and most old school design. So the old school design kind of refers to, you can choose a time frame back in the day. So it could be like the 1990s or like Windows XP, and make your design based on that time period. So that is actually a challenge on its own. So so there'll be 3 winners, and each winner will receive a $60 voucher. So yeah, that's the competition details. Yeah, we'll make sure that we post about these on our Facebook page. So make sure you like the DEVS Facebook page and follow us on all the social profiles. And just before we finish, I just wanted to talk about our future events. So our next technical workshop is the React workshop, which is on the 12th of May, right after the mid-semester break. And that will be followed by the Cloud Platform workshop, which is 2 weeks later. So our workshops this year are going to be related. So all the workshops will contribute to a larger project, which will collectively utilize a variety of skills. So today you designed a UI prototype for the final application that we'll be creating, which is the fancy to-do app. So in the React workshop, we will teach you the skills to actually build a front end for this application. It's actually a really good time to learn those technical skills, because it's right before many internship applications open. So it'll be really good to have a front end framework and HTML, JavaScript on your CV for that. And the consequent workshops after the React workshop will focus on the back end. So the final product will have, will use many skills, and it'll be a robust, complete app that you can put down as a project on your CV. So make sure you don't miss our next workshops. So just to finish off, I just want to thank all of you for coming and joining our workshop today. Thank you, Raina, Simon, and Danielle, who has left. But yeah, we hope you have a wonderful evening. If you have any questions, please reach out to us and we will help you in any way we can. But yeah, have a great evening and see you at our next workshop. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, guys.